A very good morning, everyone. A warm welcome to today's panel. Very happy to see those who could join on a Friday morning, and even more delighted to welcome our panelists. I was just uh, telling Sanchari how we contacted everyone, and everyone said yes at the first go, knowing that they're expected to bring in their lived experiences into this conversation. And that's not an easy thing to do. And for that, we are very grateful. I want to begin by acknowledging the significance of a panel like this. While conversations on gender equity, inclusion, and science are not new, they are often fragmented, informal, or siloed within institutions. What we are trying to do today is to create a shared space where experiences, challenges, and strategies can be spoken about freely, and where those insights can spark reflection and action within our own contexts. So at India Bioscience, our work has always focused on strengthening the life science ecosystem, not only through research capacity or career development, building research capacity and career development, but also through the by informing, shaping the culture that affects how people experience science. We recognize that excellence in science cannot be completely separated from conversations around equity, belonging, and the ability for all of the voices to be heard and supported, which is why conversations are like today are deeply relevant to our mission. They help us collectively reflect on what inclusion looks like in practice, in labs, institutions, leadership spaces, and they help us think about the structural as well as cultural shifts needed to build environments where everyone can thrive. I also want to take a moment and thank Sanchari for designing this panel for India Bioscience and shaping it with such care and intention. Your thoughtfulness in curating the panel, the theme, the questions, and perspectives represented here, which will be represented here, is what made this session truly possible. And thank you for that. So, to everyone in the audience, I would encourage you to listen with curiosity, ask your questions freely, and take away ideas that you can apply at your own organizations, both big and small. So, with that, on behalf of my team at India Bioscience, I once again welcome you all and our panelists. I would invite Shrestha, before we get started, to read out the housekeeping rules for our participants, and then Sanchari to introduce our panelists and moderate the rest of the discussion. Thank you very much for being here, and I look forward to this session. Shrestha, over to you.
Yes. So, quick housekeeping rules. Please do keep your microphone muted throughout the presentation to prevent background noise. And definitely, please use the raise hand feature to speak so that we can unmute. And you can use the question and answer box to ask questions to our host and to our speakers. And the chat box for any general comments introducing yourself or even reporting any technical issues that you're facing. If you lose connection by any chance, please try to rejoin using the same link that you would have received in your mail. And if the session is recorded, the video will be available on the India Bioscience YouTube channel and website later on. As a code of conduct, please let's keep this space respectful for all the participants. Any inappropriate comments or behavior may result in removal. So we really hope you have a great time at the session from receiving all the insights and discussions, and we look forward to your active participation.
Thank you, Shuli. Yes. Thanks, Shrestha. Thank you, Shuli, for setting up the stage for today's panel. This panel would not have been possible without the huge support that India Bioscience has given, bringing in all the leaders together to talk about this very important discussion. Continuing to what Shrestha was talking about, the housekeeping rules, just one more information is please feel free to ask all questions either in the Q&A session or later by raising hands. This is a completely private space and that part will not be recorded or uploaded later at any of the platforms as well. So coming to the panel, a very warm welcome to everyone who is here. I begin today by introducing the panel. Myself, I'm Sanchari Banerjee, a structural biologist by profession at Sci Life Sciences, mother of a daughter who is 8 years old, and I love baking, dancing, mentoring, and spending a lot of time with my daughter doing all the crazy things that a young one can do. Today, I'm really privileged to have Casey, Radhika, Ramona, and Uma joining us for this very important conversation. Uh, Amongst all of you, I think Radhika, this is the first time we are meeting. It is a great pleasure to meet you. Radhika is a faculty at the Center for Human Genetics, Bangalore, a cancer biologist, mother of one, mentor to some. She has got here via a very meandering route in her personal and professional life. She loves life, movies, reading, animals, traveling, and eating. Thank you, Radhika, very much for joining this session with us. Next, we have Casey. Casey brings in the international perspective to this conversation, making us realize that this situation or this conversation is international and not just an Indian situation. She is an engineer, a professional development consultant, founder, CEO at ELMM Coaching, and a mother of two boys. I have known Casey since my time in Denmark, and she has helped me balance the motherhood and my professional growth, the balancing that we are talking about. She has played a very important role. And we have also written a book together where I have had a small contribution. The book's name has been Beyond the Pipeline, which we'll talk more about during the conversation. So I'm excited again for the different flavor that you bring here today, Casey, to this conversation. Thank you for joining. Next, we have Uma. Uma, we have come in paths together when I was at NCB as a postdoc there. She's a mother, a wife, a daughter, and a woman in her 50s, and she loves animals and lucky to get to study them in her job. Thank you, Uma, for joining the conversation. So, last but not the least, Ramona, and you have been a wonderful friend and guide over the past few years. I will say I have worked with Ramona while I was there at Ignite. She is the vice president at Ignite Life Science Foundation, a professional in science philanthropy, a mother of two grown boys, loves music, writing, reading, and teaching. It's a delight to have you here, Ramona. Thank you so much for joining the conversation. I think all of you bring very different flavors to today's panel. And with Casey and Ramona being completely out of the biology perspective, but I think, Ramona, you have converged into the biology perspective eventually with Ignite itself. Uh, to all of you, to all the attendees, thank you very much for joining in today. You might be a new mother. You might be someone who is looking to be a mother, or you might be someone who is a mother to a young kid, or just a mother for long years who is trying to come back after a career break or trying to upskill yourself, grow in the leadership ladder. A very, very warm welcome, and I hope all of you can find your answers today in this panel. Recently, in one of the readings and one of my records, I found that India has a very, very alarming rate. 73% of Indian women quit their jobs after childbirth. Globally, if we see, 95% of men aged 25 to 54 years are in the labor force compared to 52% of women in the same age group. Of course, these numbers vary across different countries, different continents, depending upon infrastructure for childcare, inflexible work hours, cultural expectations, and inadequate maternity support. I myself, having traveled between Denmark and India, can feel that these challenges are different in the two countries. And that's why, with these alarming challenges and statistics, it shows why this conversation matters today. Before we dive deep into the conversation, I would request all the panelists to introduce yourself in a state uh, where you started, where you were at the start of your motherhood. how you navigated it while continuously upskilling yourself. And now you have reached at the stage of your career where you have established yourself as leaders uh, in your specific areas. So maybe I think I feel, and maybe I'm wrong, maybe the audience aligns more with the typical kind of uh, with the career path that Radhika, I first start with you as a bench scientist with a PhD, a postdoc, and not so much a field study like Uma, field study as in out in the open. So Radhika, would you like to start yourself?
Sure. So, hi to everyone, and thank you for having me on this. I think what was a very important conversation. So, I hope I'm audible to everyone. So, as per your brief, Sanchari, you asked me, where I started my journey. So, I brilliantly had a child during my PhD, and that too in my final year, which is the most traumatic year, if you might say so. And it was fine. I took a career break for 2 years. And subsequently to that, I did a postdoc at Cambridge. The only reason I will mention this is, though you say mine is a classical story, it is not, because things went deviated a lot at this point. I consider this a safe space. So I will, and of course, an interview has come out where I have spoken about the fact that I was in a domestic, very violent marriage. And therefore, my postdoc years where I was at Cambridge, it was at Cambridge, it was one of the best in the world, but I was also dealing with something very, very traumatic in my life. So, science for me was my savior. It gave me my financial independence, it gave me my dignity, and it also gave me the reason to finally leave with my son. Okay, who helped me leave actually. He's now 23, so not a kid anymore. So, there is where my path took a different turn, I would say. But in the sense of a career progression, yes, I did my postdoc. It was very difficult to come back after my 2 year break, not just because of my personal circumstances, but also because no matter how much people try to say it, a person coming back from a career break, 2 years for a woman is not 2 years, chronologically 2 years, but it's actually 4 years in terms of papers, rebuilding your networks. So that was a difficult phase, which I think many women are going to relate to, if you ask me. Then, of course, I did another postdoc. And I think the other part, which maybe many women might relate to, is coming back to India and then establishing yourself in India. That was difficult because it's quite different, the system. You need to know how to work the system. I'm sorry to say that. And you need to have mentors. I think one of my mentors is actually attending Anjali, the Professor Anjali. You need to have a mentor. So that is my journey in the field of biology, typical but also not very typical, and maybe we can talk about that a little bit more as time goes by. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Radhika. And yes, I'm sorry. And I think you are. I feel you are leading, a leader in your own field. People like me who is trying to navigate single motherhood will drive inspiration from you in a long run. So thank you for sharing your story on this. Uh, can I next ask Ramona to uh, have your introduction in this way?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for having me on this panel. I did think that not having a science background, I did contemplate what would I add to this conversation, but I realized it is a topic that affects everybody. Well, I started my career a long time ago in banking and finance, and I kind of understood how finance works at the back end. From there, I moved to Xerox, where the learnings that I had in Xerox hold me in good stead today. And why I make this comment is because, maybe I will speak about it later, is that every job that you take lends to who you are in the coming times. Well, I wanted to head service in Xerox, but I was told that, women are not really in service. So I quit and I did my MBA after 7 years of working. And from then I moved industries, I moved to education, training, consulting. And then I joined a group here in Pune and headed innovation and transformation. But COVID played spoil sport and it was hard running those businesses. And I had to quit. What I did was I went back to learning. I went to IIM Lucknow. I did a course there in digital transformation. I actually wanted to know what I did wrong or right in the businesses I was running. I was headhunted for this position, and I joined Ignite Life Sciences about 3 years ago. And in the meanwhile, also along the way, I taught preschoolers with learning disabilities. I mentored girls in STEM and helped trained prospective MBAs to take the CAT exam. So all of this learning actually helped with my children, because with the children with learning disability, teaching children with learning disabilities, I realized that both my boys learned differently, and therefore giving information and receiving information from them, I had to do it in two different ways. So I love my work. Um, I know I have purpose in this job because I know what science does for society and humanity. And my learning is every single day. And I have to say, I thoroughly enjoy this space in science. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ramona. And we'll take it up again later because I think there are many questions relevant to your career and journey as well. Uma, could you introduce yourself in this perspective?
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Uma Ramakrishnan, and as Sanchari introduced me, I love animals, and so I basically work on animals. Not only in the field, I'm not only a field ecologist, I'm a molecular ecologist. So, we bring those field samples back to the lab and try to understand, more about how animals move and what they do. I guess for me, I think that the journey was maybe it looks typical, but I actually had a disastrous PhD. I was in the US and I was really questioning whether I should continue in academia. And I, at that time, worked in a nonprofit called Maitri in the US. I was doing my PhD in the US that was involved in domestic violence peer counseling. So I tried to do, as a volunteer, to do peer counseling, even holding the hotline when people call with urgent requests. And I soon found that even within Maitri, I generally gravitated towards teaching. We had a safe house, so teaching, grant writing, and so on. So even in that space, I was less of an activist and more of a kind of involved in academic type activities. I got an opportunity to come back to India and work in an amazing institution. I think it was purely luck. And that's where I've been ever since at NCBS. But this transition was pretty crazy because I came back to India. I started a new job as a faculty in a place which is, full of stars. And I was really not a star, like I said. I had a disastrous PhD and I somehow had gotten by. So I had major and still have major imposter syndrome and moved back to India. And also within 4 months of moving back, had my first daughter. So it was many, many transitions and a lot of self-doubt throughout this journey. But I think it's been really great to be able to fold my family into my job, into whatever I've done, and I think it's been a really fun ride.
Thank you, Uma. I love the term you said, fold your family into your career. And that's, I think, so precisely many of us don't understand how to fold it. So we're looking forward to hearing more on that for you. Casey, I would love to hear your perspective. You have heard the Indian perspective now. If you could bring in your transition and let the audience also know that this is something that is internationally women also face similar situation. Of course, there are many cultural aspects that are very unique to India, but please go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, absolutely. There's unique cultural aspects, but I'm hearing a lot of similarities in the journey so far because I grew up in America. I moved to England for my master's program, so also experiences moving to different countries for further education. I came back to Seattle, which is a different part of the country from where I grew up. But I got a job at Boeing, became an aerospace engineer, worked through the corporate chain, and tried to fold in the whole planning of family into the corporate career. And I had this like, I need to become this level before I can have my first kid. I need to reach this before I can have my second kid, and really trying to plot it out so it all made sense. And I learned through 16 years of growing through aerospace corporate life that it will never make sense. You can't plan it. Even the most perfect is still going to have its challenges, its uniquenesses, the bosses that don't get it, the bosses that want to get it but have a stay-at-home wife at home and have no idea how you don't have a stay-at-home wife as well. So it's the whole journey. And then my big transition point, because I think everyone's been talking about transitions, was right after COVID when I was in a job where I was senior leader running a division, and the meetings were ridiculous. I had over 45 hours of meetings a week, and I was just not finding the joy anymore. So I really got focused on what I did enjoy about my job. And it was very much the people, the conversations, the mentoring. And so I figured out how I could shift so I could do all coaching, mentoring, and starting to collect stories and sharing things out, which is why now I'm a coach and writing books with Centauri.
Thank you very much, Casey. Thank you for that perspective. Coming to the book that Casey mentioned. So this was her second book that we talked of, that she wrote. And a very important idea or concept that I learned, on the pretext of which the book Beyond the Pipeline was written is leaky pipeline. And that is basically for systems that were never designed to include women or mothers or many other, it could be genders, race, many things together. So I would like to spend some time understanding the leaky pipeline concept in terms of each one of you and what you have faced. Um, Casey, would you like to introduce the term? And we come to the book later, but just the leaky concept, leaky pipeline concept, so that we can elaborate the term more here with us.
Absolutely. The leaky pipeline concept was first captured in academic papers around 1983. So it's been with us for over 40 years. And it was a very useful tool to articulate the system of STEM or science. It originated with academia, but it's expanded to include corporate industry, all aspects of science, and how people progress through, and people of non-male gender, women tend to not progress through. They kind of fall out, they leak. Or it was also used originally for people of color as well. So it was just a metaphor to capture the conversation of why men seem to make it all the way through to the end and women didn't. People of minorities didn't. And the challenge that we've been pushing it back against, and we're not the first ones to push against it, but it's been going on for the last decade or so, is it's so rigid, it's so myopic that there's one good path, there's one success, and that anyone who doesn't make it to that finish point somehow failed or was a drip. And it no longer resonates for where the conversation needs to go about what STEM can look like and how wonderful of an ecosystem it can be.
Thanks, Casey. And I'm sure, as an engineer, as an astronaut, I mean, as working in that space, I'm saying, not the astronaut. So you would have seen it a lot, and you've faced a lot of more challenges. Coming back, Radhika, do you feel that the attrition rate in India, in biology specifically for women, is lesser compared to other fields? Or when I meant classical, I'm just talking about staying in lab. Of course, after some time, the more you grow higher in faculty state and in the leadership roles, there is a very serious dip that we see in the percent. But would you like to comment? And what is it that leads to it? Is it just the biasness towards promotions or biasness towards hiring, or is it because there is no infrastructure that is there, that the leaky pipeline exists?
Okay, so that's a really complex question, I must say, but I'll try to break it up a little bit. So, in terms of when you ask specifically for biology, I do think there's, for example, we have this misconception, I feel sometimes, that there are more women biologists in the field than, for example, in engineering or in maths or in chemistry, which is true actually. If you look at absolute numbers, if you look at project assistants and all, we have many women. The problem is as we climb higher, the classical pyramid, we've got so many at the base, but at the top, not many of us, right? So, there's this fallacy that we don't need as much support in biology, but I disagree with that. Because I think that we have a lot of women at the entry level, at the, graduate and post, even the PhD level, there's so many of the women are there. It's nearly equal. But it's post that the problems begin. And of course, whether I've lived abroad, like Cassie very rightly, and you have said, we all have problems which are very similar, wherever we are, okay? Is it a little bit more in India? Yes, because of our society, our cultural expectations, get married by 30, have children by 30. And of course, the problem is that our productive and our reproductive years clash. They clash horribly. There is no getting away from that if you want to have it all. And I think one of the things is we can't have it all. We just can't. So one of the things I learned along my journey, because we had these mentorship programs, which I found amazing. They were women who had made it to the top, and they used to give us, not just in science, but even corporate, they used to have these series for some of us. And one of the lessons we all were taught that you have to find your support systems. It is not an equal playing field, and it is not going to be an equal playing field for a long time. That is the reality we are facing right now. Okay, either in India or even abroad. And so somehow you have to find your support systems. You have to make them, whichever way. Like from abroad, when I was abroad, because I had the earning power, one could have access to good quality creches, right, for my child. In India, childcare is not that, formal childcare is more difficult. So you have the informal parents, grandparents. My mother used to call herself the IAS, the Indian IR service, because I used to make her come wherever I was in the world to help out. So I think what one has to do is agree and understand that you are not going to have an equal playing field. Okay. Somebody once told me that if you're a woman, you have to work twice as hard just to be equal to a male. Not all males, but generally. Okay. And I'm not a male basher at all. My best mentors were men. But if you're a woman from another culture altogether, like I was abroad, you have to work thrice as hard. And God in heavens, if you have a child also done 4 times as hard. So in Cambridge, in fact, I was pushed in front of all these equal opportunity committees by my bosses, because they're like, look, you make us look so good because we've hired you wrong age, wrong culture, wrong, you've got children already. So I think you just have to make it work for you. If you can find someone who is supportive, right, who a mentor, a PI, who I don't know if this is the correct thing to say sometimes, but also has experience with family, and therefore knows the pull and tugs. It is needed, that understanding. But also, you cannot take advantage of it. That is something I do not agree with. We have to work harder. I'm just stating my truth. Whatever my personal life was, I had to make, my work was my work. I had to produce if I wanted to stay competitive. Okay, if I wanted to stay competitive. If I don't want to stay competitive, and that's nothing right or wrong, like Cassie said, I always tell my students, now that I'm on the other side, I also tell them, it's not a one-way street. You don't have to become a PI. Some people are better at being project assistants, and that's fine. You can be a lab manager. You have to find what works for you. You have to break out of this thing that the only way of success is to become a PI, because that's not going to happen. Okay, so find what works for you, find what makes you happy. Hopefully have someone who you can have that conversation with, right? But also be realistic that you're going to have to work very, very hard to stay competitive. There is no way out of that. I'm sorry to say this. So when people talk to me about, life and lab balance and 9 to 5, good for them. If they've managed to do it, hats off. It didn't work for me. I had to find ways to work late into the night and all that. And that's the reality. So that's what I would say. In India, yes, it is not an equal playing field, is not going to be an equal playing field for women for a long time. Try to find supportive ecosystem. Okay, at least find the people whom you can talk to, have a conversation when you need to. And if you find, and one of the important things in India, I would say, is you have to have a mentor. You have to have someone who can help you, figure out the system. Yeah. So that is my take on women in biology in India.
Thank you so much, Radhika. A lot to take from it, and a lot of conversations already. I can feel the heat's getting started up. With the 9 to 5 thing that you mentioned, and the mentorship already coming into play, and the village that creating your own village. I think these are absolutely true and essential. Um, while I was at NCBS, and Uma, to follow this up to you, I think NCBS, I cherish the creche. Like, I think at my time in 2017, when I had my daughter born, or even mothers before that, I think it was one of the unique organizations and place, whether you take corporate or academic, to have such a wonderful facility, a creche facility. And I think we cherish as employees at NCBS and in STEM regarding that. So, Uma, could you also talk about your experience and additions on this, on the leaky pipeline concept, um, complete in your areas and field?
So yeah, so the leaky pipeline I'll get to next, but I'll talk about the daycare first at NCBS. So, by the laws of the government of India, any organization with more than 10, I think it's 10 employees, maybe I'm wrong, but is supposed to have a daycare, so it's actually mandated. Now, how that daycare plays out, whether it's just a room with some children and, some uh, with a non-enriching environment, shall we say. I don't want to be critical. It's then it could be that taken very literally, that the children are safe, or it could be a really enriching environment. And so I think that early on, Sandhya Kaushika, who was at that time a faculty at NCBS, me and several others kind of tried to help a little bit to think of how can we make this daycare a place where people want their children to be, not just that they are safe, but the children are excited to be. And I think that just as it helped us, it's had a really great effect on the kids, So I think that children who are in daycare, they learn a lot of social interactions. They learn how to interact with other kids. And I personally have always felt it's nicer for kids to be with other kids. I'm kind of boring for a kid, I think. So, I think that the big plus of NCBS is not just that there is a thriving daycare, it's set in the campus. So, the kids can always go outside and there's a lot of outdoor time. And that I think is very challenging in cities, because in big cities in India, that simply does not exist, however good the staff may be, however enriching the environment may be. So I think this is an opportunity for campuses, that they can capitalize on the fact that they are in, these relatively more greener, quieter spaces without a lot of traffic and so on, to make it really enriching environments for children. As far as the leaky pipeline goes, I don't know. I mean, I think that I agree with Radhika that we do have to work harder. And I personally feel that irrespective of, gender, science is something which is about passion, and it requires a fire, like a need to understand something, a lot of determination, a never give up kind of spirit. And you know if you're not so driven by curiosity, and I mean, it doesn't have to be necessarily passion. It could be passion, it could be a sense of purpose, whatever it is, but you need that fire. Otherwise, for anyone to do science, it might be difficult. Now, I have mathematician colleagues who might say that, not really. you can be a mathematician without, any kind of, I mean, of course, you have a curiosity, but you don't need to, you know, like be pushy, like in the Indian system at least. You really do need to figure out, how grants work, whom to contact, so many things, uh, which are important, which are in some sense nothing to do with science, right? They are just more social skills and quirks of the system, that you need to kind of figure out. But my feeling or my approach is that, if I want to get something done, and it's not wrong. It's not like I'm, hurting someone else or cheating someone else, or, I'm not doing anything bad or ethically wrong. Then I will do whatever it takes, to basically move the science forward. So if that means working harder, I'll work harder. If that means that I have to, go and meet, in my case, in the case of my work, some bureaucrats, I will do it. So I think that, people may not agree with that. They may call that pushy or aggressive. But I think it's stemming from the need to understand something. Stemming from that. For me, it stems from that.
Yeah. Thanks, Uma, very much. And I think, considering myself, I'm someone in the corporate life. And I think most of these questions are very relevant, and the answers that you give are very relevant. It's not about just having a 9 to 5, or just trying to finish the lab work, or just trying to finish. If we try to grow as we are leaders or managers, we have to do something which is completely outside the lab work, or something which is not science. And you need that one mentor or two mentors who will pull you up and help you, guide you as to, which is what in the right direction. Ramona, I'll come back to you, but I think there's a very apt question, and if Uma, you can take it up. uh, by Neelam, there's a question: how do you recognize when someone is the right mentor for you versus just a supervisor? How do you confidently approach potential mentors without feeling like a burden?
I think that, a lot of, I okay, so I think, it's really great to have this word mentor, but for me, science is really, like, I feel of everyone as a colleague. Like, I don't think that, oh, I'm above them and give them advice types. It's just that I have more experience. So I think that, as someone who is a mentor, I do think it's important to understand the whole personality of someone. So basically, that helps to think of the pathway forward. So of course, it's important to understand through a PhD what you want to do later. And that's not only like, oh, I'm not good enough to do academia. It should not be that at all. It should be, what are your strengths and what are you interested in? So basically, a good mentor is someone, I agree with the question that as a PhD supervisor, it is critical to be a mentor, or someone who looks not just at how to do the right how to pose a question, how to do the right kind of things to do the science, but how to build a career, right? And that's different from just, getting papers or publishing or writing a thesis. I think it's just about chemistry. Some people you feel like you connect with,
Connect with
you
them.
appreciate their sense of purpose, what they value. I believe in values. I think some people have different values, and not to criticize, but I think it's very much about that connection, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Thanks a lot, Uma, and I hope that answers most of the curiosity behind the question also. Ramona, would you like to elaborate on your aspects and your areas of leaky pipeline and how you would have addressed that?
Yes, I have to talk about corporate life, which is actually rather similar. Now, to start with, I'm going to say something which may sound radical, but when you talk about a leaky pipeline, I think we actually need to talk about the bad plumbing that goes inside the pipeline. Because when we see the pipeline, we only see externally. But the pipeline could be corroded, the S-bend could have a lot of dirt in it. And this is when we have to shift that conversation from the leaky pipeline to what is not making that pipeline perfect. Whether it's confidence coming back into the workspace, ecosystems, lack of investment in women, outdated technology when we come back, reduced confidence, lost networks. That is all part of this leaky pipeline. And when we say pipeline, we only look at it as people dropping out. And when we change the narrative, we actually start thinking about all of this instead of just data as so many people dropped out. In corporate life, it is not very different because it's just been about 10 years ago that it has been mandated that you have a woman on boards. So we still have only about 11% of women who are on boards. And yet we are a much larger percentage in terms of women in the workplace. And because of that, these women who have taken the first step of getting onto boards, getting themselves trained, you now actually have people who train women, train people to serve on boards because you need independent directors and you need women directors. Those people, the first ones who have done this a while ago, have actually done us a big service because it's no longer fearful to serve on a board. If you've never been part of strategy, part of leadership, it's scary to sit into a place where you have, men talking over your head because they don't see you in that boardroom. But we need to understand that beyond that leaky pipeline, we've got to have an ecosystem that supports us. And I think that has started. It just needs to be a lot more conversations, lot more forums like this to let people know that it's possible. There are places where you can go to get mentorship, understanding, people to reach out to. I've had good experiences and very bad experiences, of course. But yes, that's my take on pipelines, leaky pipelines, women not in leadership. Sure.
Okay, thank you so much. I will spell out 4 words right now. And I want you all 4, and including me, we will raise our hands in using the icon below to showcase whether this has happened with all of us or not. Ready? So first term is burnout. Okay, so it is 3 of us. Okay. Next, coming to imposter syndrome. Okay, awesome. Awesome for those who have not had it. Yes. Guilt. Okay, so we've all gone through the whole process of guilt at some stage or the other. Difficulty balancing at one point. I'm not saying throughout as you have grown, but there was one point you really didn't know what to do, what not to do, unless you really went with the mentors and went through the whole thing. Okay. So I think that it fairly says that it's great if we do not go through all of them. If we go through, I'll just lower my hand. Yeah. So maybe we'll just distribute one out of for all of you to have a word on it. The first is burnout. Casey, would you like to talk a bit about the burnout? And at the same time, would you be okay to mention a bit of when you were writing the book, how did the burnout part come out and how did you feel about it? So just to let everyone know, this book has been authored by many women leaders across the whole world. There are across 7 continents, women leaders. And for every chapter written, there has gone a lot of conversations and a lot of troubleshooting. So on the burnout point of view, I would like to know your standpoint and how you feel the women also felt while writing the chapter.
Yeah. The life of a working parent, I think, has potential for burnout. And kind of what Ramona was saying, looking in that pipeline, looking at the buildup, looking at the resistance of the system. One of the conversations that we had a lot putting this project together was that it's not any one woman, any one caregiver's fault if they're feeling burnt out. It's the layers of needing to be the perfect, always available worker, and the layers of needing to have your kid in every single soccer club and dance and piano and all these expectations that society and the system at work and the systems of education, they all have these expectations. And so as you try to bend backwards into each one of these, that's where burnout comes from. It doesn't come from waking up one day and being like, I feel like I should do everything all at once right now because that sounds great. And so recognizing that through all of our conversations with the 50 plus women and allies that worked on this book, it was so refreshing as we literally have a chapter called Burnout. But the conversation, it was the first chapter in our second section, which is all about sharing stories and experiences and data. And that it started that chapter, that section, because it rolls through every single other conversation in the book, I think, of how the systems are not set up right now and how we need to find actions and solutions to start changing it. And like I already heard from the rest of the panel, it's going to be a long journey. It's not tomorrow, but recognizing it, articulating it, and starting these conversations is how we start to clean out some of that crud in the pipe.
Okay, yes. Thanks, Casey. And I think all of these terms that we talked about now, all of them have this. It's not, it takes time to come out of it, but we need to acknowledge it. The first thing is acceptance and acknowledgement, and then we can work towards it. Now, if I remember right, Ramona, you had your hand up for guilt, right?
Yes.
Okay, so would you like to take that up?
Yeah. Guilt, I think, is self-made. And I'm saying this because I've kind of finished the difficulty of small children. My children are a lot older. And I have been thinking about where I am today and how I could have done a lot better earlier in my life. And all that guilt was self-made. Did I ask for support? No. Did I want support? No. I'm a woman. I'm a superwoman. I can do it all. So I think that guilt we have to come to terms with. We have to say, yes, I can feel guilty, but I can ask for support. And more than asking for support, I am okay to accept support. I'm okay with saying I can't do all those football matches and those 1 million things, but I need support. And that support doesn't only come from family. And in India, we have these mothers and fathers and brothers and everybody living together, but it comes from friends. It comes from somebody who has that time. So this whole support system goes beyond just those husbands and mothers-in-law and mothers to friends. And that's where I thought I could have done better. I could have asked my friends, pick up my children instead of rushing out, driving at breakneck speed to pick up somebody or the other. So in retrospect, I'm saying, I don't think we really need to feel guilt. We need to be comfortable with the fact that this is what it is. It is a difficult space. Ask for support and don't feel guilty about it because we can't do it all. We certainly can't do it all.
Definitely. I absolutely agree that, it's not possible to attend all meetings for my daughter in the school. And at the same time, I can also avoid, there are many socials or many places where I have to go for my office. unless, like Uma and Radhika mentioned, to take them together and be at a place where, okay, you come with me, and that's the time together, whether it's a scientific place or it's a place where they can have fun together. So the next term is imposter syndrome. Uma, I guess you had your hands up. I'm not sure. Yes. Okay. Would you like to take it up? Good.
Yeah, I had my hands up for all of them. So, yeah, so imposter syndrome is, of course, I guess, as I mean, as a researcher, I always feel like I don't know enough. I want to know more. I feel uncertain, if you know what I mean, right? So, then suddenly now, as a faculty, you're supposed to judge others and you're supposed to do all of this stuff. Uh, it feels a little like, okay, is this really, I mean, I don't know whether I have the jobs for this. And I think that for me, what has, and I always, like I said, I had a shaky journey starting out. I had a really bad PhD. I had a very nice postdoc, but I feel still got a job, because I was in the right place at the right time in some sense. Um, and I think that for me, what has always really helped, and this is also true, for example, with things like awards or nominations and so on. So I think that what's helped is to know that someone believes in me. That someone thinks that I should be nominated for this, or someone thinks that I've done a great job. And I think for me, really, I think what's been amazing and very, very gratifying is to see how our work is really, actually inspiring a lot of young people. Uh, it's very crazy, it's very adventurous, and it's very, you know, like, could be seen as, not kind of off the beaten track, because we work with endangered species, we work in remote locations. But I think it's really nice to see that it can be done, and someone is going out there, and not me, of course, not only me, all of my early career researcher colleagues in the lab with me, we're doing it. So I think that to me, that really helps, is to realize that there are people who believe in me. I'm talking about scientific, like mentors. Of course, at home, it's always good to have support. And I was really lucky to grow up in a family where, for example, my parents didn't really tell me, oh, you can't do this, you can't do that, you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. And that itself, I think, opens up the possibility that, oh, yeah, you can do anything. But as you encounter, especially in academia, a lot of really smart people, you think, well, maybe I'm not really that smart, and so maybe, you know, I'm not really good at this, or I shouldn't be in this place. I shouldn't be, at Tata Institute of Fundamental Research or whatever, right? So I think that the interactions with younger people, and seeing how the over the years work has kind of touched people. I think that's something which is really meaningful to me, um, and helps me keep going.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Uma. Thank you. Uh, Radhika, would you like to touch upon difficulty in balancing, if you have had that, or I can proceed with another question for you?
If I've had difficulty in balancing, I'm a
Yeah.
single mother. Yes, I
Yes. Of
have.
course.
Okay, but like, and this is, I think Cassie was talking about it a little bit. So I have not had the burnout when you talk about. I've not had the luxury of being burnt out. That's the way I'll put it. Okay, being financially completely responsible for a child and myself when I was abroad, I've not had that luxury. I wish I had. And when I look back now, I'm sure there are many points at which I was completely collapsing, but I couldn't. Right. So once again, and I'm not saying it as a great thing. I wouldn't want anyone to go through it, but I couldn't afford to think of myself as a superwoman who can do it all. My son also is a professional cricketer. He was in state teams. The kind of travel we had to do, along with balancing my career, is instructive maybe to many women that it can be done also. So one is I had a very, very supportive person leading the lab. So Alex was, so I was at Australia when, you know, everything blew up in my personal life, let's put it that way. And so but I immediately reached out. I did not reach out to everyone. It's a very personal, private part, very painful part of my life. But I had to learn to reach out to the correct people first and foremost. The ones who were empathetic and who are going to help me, not pull me down. I did not want to go to HR. I did not want all that. I went to individuals who I knew who could help me. And it takes a village. It truly takes a village, not only for the woman, but to bring up the child. And I was shameless. I was absolutely shameless. I used, I mean, all my friendships, you know, I had to reach out to them. You know, when you think of the practice sessions that my son had to go to, I was in a demanding career. He had to travel for state matches and he was very, very young. So, you know, the coaches that came through for us, the cricket family, my wonderful, wonderful cricket family. So I had to reach out. And I had, I guess, like you, I think Ramona mentioned that, you know, one wishes one had reached out. Maybe some women think later, but I didn't have a choice. I had to reach out, right? And in some ways, I think that was good because I didn't waste years, you know, not reaching out. I shamelessly asked for help, and guess what? I got it, right? And that community that helped me and my son through very, very difficult times. Professional help was taken, personal help, friendships, and we also gave back in our own way. So I agree with what Ramona was saying that we need to, one, you can't do everything, okay? But you can have a jolly good time trying and take help, you know, take help while you're doing it. I have had a wonderful time. I would not give a single second up of the immense pressures we both felt, my son and me, having our own careers with his education, my career. I would not give up a single minute of it, okay? But was it difficult? Absolutely. I have not had weekends because, you know, you have cricket 24/7. Coming back to India, don't even ask. Okay, it's a religion here, you all know that. And he's in state team. So, yeah, it was difficult, but I think what Ramona is saying is absolutely correct. You have to ask for help and have fun doing it. You're never going to get these years back. Never with your kids, you know, never. So reach out, take your support systems, get help, but get it from the correct people. Because believe me, there'll be enough people willing to tear you down. Okay. So, like a bit like what Uma was saying about mentors or colleagues who understand you, I think it's a very organic process. I have, you know, one has become, I'm very open as a person, but with my experiences, I have learned to be a little bit, hold myself back a little bit, okay? And so I don't immediately, you know, tell everyone my story and all, no, and I don't want to also. But I find people over time whom I organically like, whom I trust, very important. And like Uma rightly said, who has shared values with me. It's nothing right, nothing wrong, but believes in what I also believe, whether it be professional or personal, right? And those are the people organically who have become my friends, you know, mentors, whatever you want to call them, right? So I have for the life, this thing balance, I don't even think there's a balance for a very, very long time. I think I have more balance now that my son is older and I'm older and I think a little bit wiser. Yeah, I have a bit more space to think for myself. But otherwise, yes, those 20s, 30s, 45 till, you know, the kids get out of college, they are tough years to find your balance and take whatever help you can, but the correct help is what I would say to women.
Yeah. Thanks, Radhika. And I think thanks to all of you to talk about these four terms. And, you know, when I was in Denmark, I felt I somehow, for me also, identifying the correct person to whom I can rely on. I had to reach out who will help me, you know, navigating pickups and all those things. And we need to build villages. And internationally, it was more difficult. But coming back, I feel it is much more difficult having, like, you know, it's like a common thing we say there's a mother or there's a mother-in-law who is there. But going beyond that, I think that's where we need to broaden ourselves more and take that support and help. So I think we've come to an interesting section now. Like, you know, we have identified the problems and we have identified, and this is going on, you know. And to let everyone know, my interest comes from the fact that having stayed when I went to Denmark, I was already a mother of a 2.5-year-old kid. And suddenly there's a lot of respect for a working mother, a lot of infrastructure in place to make, and as such, a working parent, there's no distinction as such as a working mother or a working father. And you have the infrastructure in place, integrated, so that the parents can leave the kid happily in the school, in the daycare, and then go to office and then come back and pick up the kid. So everything is very well integrated culturally. And that's where, coming back to India, I ask these questions. So I would like to ask you today, and Casey, please feel free to also give the international perspective on it, is that how do we move from here? Today we are in 2025. We are still identifying the problem, still talking of guilt and burnout and all these things. How do we move forward when we are trying to ask questions on what next? How do we identify the correct path? So, Uma, at your time, you were able to make that daycare, you were able to bring out something that was, even if it was a government mandate, was not there in most of the places. So the question comes, how do we move out from here, reaching out to policyholders, reaching out to, what's the correct direction? Anyone? Radhika, Ramona, Uma. I'm just taking the Indian perspective first, and then.
Oh, so sorry, would you like me to answer first, or?
Yes, sure. Please go ahead.
I have no illusions that I'm going to make any change to policymakers, okay, in our country at this point at all. So, but I do know, like, Uma was saying at NCBS, for example, I do know of the TIFR, one of the first really good nurseries that came up, and I think, and I'll just share a small anecdote here. When I was doing my PhD at NII, you have this Women's Day great meetings, and we all were sent truckloads from NII and different DBT organizations where the minister was speaking, and he started off his usual thing that why are women, not by the leaky pipeline, all that stuff. And I remember one woman put up her hand, one lady, and he, thought, okay, what do you want to say? She just said that instead of speaking, just give us good creches, affordable, good creches within the institution or close by. And she said, we'll all come back. So basically what she was saying very bravely, I don't think she continued in science after that, was that it's easy to talk, right? But even abroad, one had, for example, at Addenbrooke's, we had the nursery. But the people at Addenbrooke's were given MRC, were given first priority to get into that nursery, right? It was not even a 5-minute walk from the labs. So when the kid was unwell, you could just walk across. So these are practical things that need to be done at the funding level and at an institutional level, which is still not being done in India because our childcare is still very informal, right? So I mean, I do wish policy makers would understand that you give women the thing, we will get there, but you've got to give it and you've got to make it affordable. So many of my friends abroad did not come back to science because it was like another mortgage, to have childcare, So I think these are practical things. Everyone knows it. It is not rocket science, but whether people have the will to do it is another question altogether. So women have to do it, I feel, for themselves.
Yeah. Okay. Ramona?
Yes. Yeah, you see, this is a slightly different perspective to this thing. It's great that most of our government places have some sort of a creche, whether they're enriching creches is besides it. It's a mandate. The thing is that if the policy already exists, and I'm going to say this without full knowledge about all our government institutes, all our science publicly funded institutions. If you don't have it, if it is a mandate, I think there has to be collective voices asking the head, where is the creche? And I think if we start asking, somewhere 10 years down the line, you'll get that creche. I know with Ignite understands this problem fully. I think you've just seen that call that we put out, where we have students, we will pay for the caregiver to go and attend national conferences. So if you have small things like this, you are going to help the younger ones who have young children to stay in it. And I think we need to start pushing and saying, it's there, it's mandated, more than 10 people. I think it is more than 50 people, not 10 people, but more than 50 people or 10 people in the organization, you are supposed to have a creche. And corporate needs to do that also. I don't think many corporates have creches. Despite them not being funded, they make their revenues, they make their profits, so they have the money to do it. It's the will and the conversation that doesn't say, hey, where's the creche? Where's the creche? We tend to step back when it comes to being mothers. Like, hey, you guys are doing us a favor by giving us creches. You guys are doing us a favor by giving us 26 weeks of maternity leave. And that's where I think that guilt comes in, that, we're like preying on the system. That's not right. We've got to start talking a lot more.
Thanks, Ramona. And I think these are very important to have. And in the interest of coming back from Denmark, trying to understand how do I balance myself. I've been asking same questions, and thankfully, my organization has been very proactive in helping me to, trying to find solutions together, and that supports a woman to grow up as well as in your career. Uh, in the interest of time, we'll take some last minute one. We'll try to wrap this session up. Most of the questions that had been asked during the registration for all of the attendees here has been already, in the even, during the course of our conversation, we have tried to answer or bring up these questions. However, you can connect to myself or any of the other panelists through LinkedIn and try to see if you would like to further this communication and have talks more about individualistic. Many times, these are very individualistic, and not everyone's solutions can fit to one particular person. But now what I'll ask all of you is to give me answer in one liners or maximum one word, not more than one line. Yeah. So this is for first Casey. Yeah. How do you maintain a balance between screen time of kids during your working hours? Any mantra, one line.
One line. Use the Nintendo parenting controls so they turn it off.
Ah, okay. Radhika, have you faced similar situation?
Get them into sports. They don't have
Get
the
them,
time.
get them into sports. Okay, good. Next question. Uma, how do you go beyond the 9 to 6 job to build your career and being a present mom? One line.
The good thing about academia is it can be flexible, right? So at sometimes, some days you work much past 9 to 5, and there are other times where you can actually take off some time. I've also found that, like I said, folding my kids in, taking them with me when I do field work and so on, is a really
Oh,
unique and
fantastic.
wonderful opportunity
Yeah.
to bond with them and do things differently.
Yeah, thank you. Good example to showcase my daughter to take her to the upcoming conference. Yes.
Yes.
Ramona, same question. How do you go beyond the 9 to 6 job to build your career and be a present mom?
I think in some ways I'm a little inflexible. I keep certain times during the day, and I say before 9 o'clock, it's for my children. Of course, my children are a lot bigger right now, but I split the time with children, with work, with family, with friends, with reading, with music. It's not that I do everything, all of that on one day, but I try, I become agile about doing it, and that keeps me sane because then I'm not just working.
Okay, so I think we'll conclude here from my side. I'll give it over to Shrestha and Shioli. Thank you very much, all the panelists, everyone, Ramona, Uma, Radhika, Keshi, for being here
Thank you.
at your time and being part of this very important conversation. Thank you to all the attendees who took their time out for joining us. Thank you to India Bioscience, to Shuli, to Shrestha, and all the team members who have been so approachable. The moment I talked about it, they were like very open, and the huge amount of support they have given towards this. I cannot just say thanks in just one or two sentences for them. Thank you, everyone, and over to you, Shrestha and Shuli.
So thank you everyone for joining in, and really was looking forward to this entire discussion. Being a woman myself, that the kind of challenges that we face. And it was so good to hear from your experiences, from the kind of perspectives that you brought. It was really, really insightful. And thank you to all the attendees who were also taking part in the chat. They've sent their questions. Quite a lot of people also sent their questions at the registration itself, which were hopefully answered in this. And if you still haven't taken the live poll, the link is there in the chat as well as available here on your screen. So this is something we have got with what Sanchari had initiated for the panelists particularly. And now we thought that we'll open it up to the attendees as well, who can answer this and see how we have felt this at some point in our life. And really, we take back some of these insights with us, and we hope to create more spaces to have such conversations. And we also expect if you also have some of these suggestions in terms of holding the next conversation, next panel discussion, where we can provide the space to have them, we really look forward to your ideas, and you could share those with us at hello@indiabioscience.org. And we really look forward to having more such community-led panel discussions and more sessions where we can have these in our spaces. So thank you, and thank you to the team who put in their support. Thank you to Sanchari. Thank you to all the panelists who joined in, especially Cassie joining in from a very different time zone. So thank you everyone for sharing lovely insights and making this conversation richer and meaningful for everyone. We hope to take back all these insights in our respective organizations and lives. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Thanks, Rishta. Let's
Thank
close
you.
the session and the live.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.